Court Watch with Alex Sawyer, and I'm excited to bring you the 10th episode of my podcast where I will be joined by Judge Jeanine Pirro of Fox News. Prior to joining Fox News Channel, Judge Jeanine worked as a prosecutor and a judge in Westchester County, New York. She's used her firsthand experience and knowledge now as an author, detailing what she sees as faults with delivering justice in recent years in her book out this month, Crimes Against America, The Left's Takedown of Our Republic. She points out the problems traced to progressive prosecutors, cashless bail policies, and the lack of immigration enforcement. Judge Jeanine also shared with me her thoughts surrounding the Durham report and the Supreme Court's reputation as the justices are wrapping up their 2022 term in the coming weeks. Here's a bit from our interview just days after her book became available from Winning Team Publishing. I just wanted to first ask you, why did you feel it was important to write this book now? Was there any one event in particular that sparked you to want to highlight the imbalance or lack of justice society has been experiencing or witnessing on the streets of, and I know you mentioned New York City. You give examples in your book of that. I live in D.C. I see it here. Was there anything in particular that really sparked your interest in this, or did you think it was just time is up?
I think if you look at a newspaper, if you turn on the television, you read the feed on your phone, you realize that America is not the shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan once talked about. Mm-hmm. And I think that every day we hear about things like the Durham report. We see inflation at a 40-year high. We see people who are working two jobs to be able to buy groceries. And then we see the nonsense that's going on in the federal government with the FBI, the DOJ, the calling parents domestic terrorists, teaching our kids things in school that, as a former prosecutor myself, I might charge someone with child pornography. Mm-hmm. This country is right now suffering from the left trying to take down our republic. So Crimes Against America, The Left's Takedown of Our Republic, is my 8th book, and it's an essential read for anyone who's trying to understand what is going on in America today. It is the result of a leftist, socialist, Marxist kind of assault on America, on everything from capitalism to meritocracy. The belief that it's not equality that we want, it's equity, that everybody ends up with a trophy, whether you win or you don't win. And it is the suppression of free speech. It is the use of the courts to spy on a presidential candidate, mm-hmm. or the use of the FBI to threaten Twitter and Facebook not to write anything about Hunter Biden's laptop, which we now know is not only legitimate and real, but had Americans learned about it and been able to read about it before the election, would have changed their vote and would have changed the election. So we're seeing corruption at the highest levels of government. And for someone who, like myself, has been a prosecutor, a judge, a district attorney for over 3 decades, I've run for office 5 times. I know I know my wheelhouse, and mm-hmm. I don't like what I'm seeing right now. And that's why I wrote Crimes Against America.
Yeah, and from what I've read, I really like how you break down, you also trace it to progressive prosecutors and cashless bail systems. You kind of break down that and like the implications that has, even like pointing to statistics. I think it was like a 26% rise in crime from people who were let go, or basically released in New York City, I think is one example you gave.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Durham report. Obviously, that's been in the news in recent weeks, and how that impacts the FBI. I guess, are there aspects from this report that you wish you could have expanded upon in your book, given what all you're writing about? I know it was published prior to or was being released, before the Durham report was out. There just seems to be this double standard in terms of investigations that we saw handled at the highest level against Democrats versus Republicans, or those specifically aligned with Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any question. And the Durham report, amazingly, I think that they told that they put that whole team into effect, I think, in 2019. So here we are 4 years later. We get the Durham report. But honestly, it's 7 years late. It was in 2016 that the corruption started, that Jim Comey, as the head of the FBI, pretty much shepherded an affidavit, which was unverified, to a FISA court judge to spy on an American citizen to find out what was going on in Donald Trump's campaign for president. This is what you do in third world countries, banana republics. It's not what we do in the United States. But not only were they successful in getting the warrant, they spied and created, according to the Durham report, this Russia collusion hoax. And the most stunning part of it for me, and a lot of this is in Crimes Against America, which you can get at judgeshabook.com. The most stunning part for me is the fact that Hillary Clinton, according to the Durham report, was the one who came up with the idea of a Russia collusion hoax. She told Barack Obama and Joe Biden that she needed to get the press and everyone off her back because of the email scandal. You'll recall she had all those classified documents on her emails. Mm-hmm. She deleted 33,000 of them, which is destruction of evidence. We find out about that just a couple weeks ago. And now the woman is talking about, Joe Biden's age is really an issue, pretty much saying, anointing herself and saying, I, however, am capable of running for president again. The corruption on the left and the left's hypocrisy and their chutzpah and saying that, I have no problem running because I am the best is simply mind-boggling. So in the book, I talk about all of this, and I talk about the fact that no one was ever fired. So you got Ron DeSantis, who just announced this week, and what does he say? He says the first thing he's going to do is he's going to fire Christopher Wray, who is of the Jim Comey ilk. No one's fired. No one's suspended. Whether it's Strzok, McCabe, Page, Comey, the president.
And there's lack of prosecution. Right. There's lack of prosecutions too. And I think I was going to ask you, how could confidence in the FBI be restored with the American public? But I guess it's, the idea of accountability is lacking, right? Isn't that really what needs to be seen?
Yeah, well, they need to restructure it, and they need to change the whole top. And the lack of accountability has created this sense in America of a corrupt Department of Justice and FBI. And the sad part about that is that, people in America want to believe that everything is on the up and up and that Lady Justice is blind, but Lady Justice is not blind. And, that's why we've got whistleblowers coming out now saying, we've been investigating Hunter Biden for the last 5 years in the grand jury and nothing has happened. Now, let me explain something to you. I could write an accusatory instrument and charge Hunter Biden with, how about lying on a pistol permit application? Mm-hmm. Joe Biden is so against guns, and yet he allows his son to lie on a permit to get a gun, which is then thrown in a garbage can outside of the school, which the Secret Service then goes and collects, and yet he gets away with it. Hunter Biden gets away with back tax $1 million. I don't know anyone who's been able to pay that kind of back tax of $2.5 million and not go to jail. Mm-hmm. How about money laundering? How about the pay to play? How about being a foreign lobbying in a foreign country, which is what we put Paul Manafort in jail for in solitary confinement. And the whistleblowers are coming out and they're ruining their lives. They're admitting to it. We had 4 testifying in Congress. I talk about all that in Crimes Against America. It is an arrogance on the part of the left. It's an arrogance on the part of the Democrats who don't think that we matter and who are just going to take care of themselves and to hell with everyone else.
You mentioned the public perception of the DOJ, FBI, but I cover the Supreme Court mostly. So I wanted to ask you, there seems to be fighting, of course, always on Capitol Hill, but there's this call from Senate Democrats about ethics. They want to impose ethics legislation on the Supreme Court. Then you have Republicans bringing up security issues, right, that we've actually seen firsthand, the protests, the assassination attempt against Justice Kavanaugh.
Right.
I just, what I think is pretty sad is this idea, as you see it in polling, that the public sees the Supreme Court as so politicized, or their approval rating has just continued to decrease in terms of popularity or approval of the job they're doing. Why do you think one of the things I keep tracing this to is the leak last year, ahead of the Dobbs opinion. Do you think that the court needs to identify someone, or at least say like, well, it was a law clerk that since left, or do you think that that would help somewhat restore, I guess, the integrity of the court?
Yeah, when I talk about the takedown of America and crimes against America, I'm talking about things like the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Education Department. I talk about the mainstream media being in lockstep with the Democrats. But when you talk about the Supreme Court, it's whether I've been a judge myself or, my respect for the law. I find it very disconcerting when the Supreme Court is seen as a political body. And I think, to answer your question, that there is no doubt that if they were able to identify who this person was, that there would be a little more confidence in the court. But they never intended to release that person. My understanding is that the investigation was poorly done. That, as opposed to, resolving it very quickly, getting phones, getting information from people, it took months and months. And when that happened, you knew there was never going to be a resolution. And so the Supreme Court has essentially allowed itself to become a political football by, not stepping in and making sure that whoever leaked it, whether it's a clerk, a secretary, an assistant, or a Supreme Court justice, that not identifying that person has been a self-imposed injury on the court.
Do you think it's going to be left to, I guess, to close things out, we talk about accountability could help restore these various aspects from, federal government, executive branches to the judiciary. But like, I guess, do you think it's all on, I guess, congressional Republicans or Jim Jordan? Maybe his committee could probe this issue. The question would be, would you call the FBI in to try to follow up this investigation when we just discussed the problems within the FBI, right?
Yeah. Well, Christopher Wray, from the first time he testified before Congress and said that, he wasn't going to be able to give any information to the Oversight Committee that has oversight over the FBI. I said to myself, they'll never hand anything over. And the fact that they're very resistant, the fact that the whistleblowers in the FBI, their lives have been changed. One recently, I think, testifying this week that when he became a whistleblower or made a complaint regarding the Hunter Biden case and the failure to indict anyone, of course, Hunter Biden in this case, he was sent to another state, sold his house, and then was told when he got to the other state, we're going to put you on unpaid suspension and leave. This is the kind of gamesmanship that we never expect in America from Lady Justice. And they have corrupted the administration. And I don't know if Jim Jordan and, Congress can do anything that really will have an impact. The Democrats have gaslighted. They've lied about disinformation, misinformation, whether it's the laptop, whether it's COVID, whether it's opening of the schools. It's been a nightmare. I don't believe that anything can happen unless and until you have a Department of Justice Attorney General who is interested in cleaning things up and has the power to indict and the power to get a conviction.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing all of this. Your new book, Crimes Against America, The Left's Takedown of Our Republic, from Winning Team Publishing, out. It was this week, right? May 23rd? Yeah. Perfect. And
yes, it was out on Tuesday.
Tell us where people can go to purchase it. Can they go to a local bookstore? Do they go to your website?
They can get it at any bookstore, Barnes & Nobles, anywhere, Amazon, or if you go to judgejbook.com, you can get a signed copy. Perfect. So that's judgejbook.com. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
Really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Judge Jeanine for her time, and to you all for tuning in to the 10th episode of Court Watch. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so, and also feel free to email me interesting questions or topics you want explored about the legal reporting world. I'll do my best to answer them during each episode. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Listen to my podcast, Court Watch, at WashingtonTimes.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.